Kegels are enough? Think again. In part 2 with pelvic floor coach Zoe, we're talking about why strength training really matters before, during and long after kids. From breath to movement, this one's all about real tools, real recovery and real power.
Hi, I'm Britt.
And I'm Amy, and welcome to the Every Season podcast.
We're here for a fun time, not a long time.
Hopefully we're here for a bit of a long time. Hey Britt,
Hey, Ames.
would you say you need some assistance when it comes to being more aware of your body?
Why, what have you got?
Well, you can download our free 7-step female body awareness kit and see if it helps
Sweet, where?
in the show notes and on our website.
Also, in order for us to be here for a long time,
Please subscribe to our podcast.
how often and how long do you think women need to be doing this for? Like, exercise-wise, before and before kids or after kids? How long do you think?
So I'll use myself as an example. I, when I had my second daughter, I had kind of learnt a little bit more about how the breath impacts the pelvic floor, and I did 0 Kegels when I was pregnant. I didn't, so those intentional pelvic floor contractions, holds, letting go, all of that. I just practiced the breathing. And when I was doing my strength training, I just practiced incorporating that into my training. So I was kind of through my whole pregnancy. And then after her birth, I had a really beautiful home birth with her, which was so healing after my first birth. I knew that I could kind of jump back into the breathing and the kind of gentle mobility, from, I think it was day 3. So after I gave birth, I was jumping straight back into very gentle breathing and doing my mobility, just trying to open up through my rib cage, make room up here. So all that pressure that had been pushing down into my pelvic floor could kind of come back up. And so from pregnancy all the way through till about 9 months postpartum, I was doing something every single day. And it didn't have to be long. It was maybe only 5 minutes some days, and then other days it was a full workout with some of this stuff at the start. But I was practicing something every single day. So I think there's this kind of idea that we can just do some Kegels for a month or so and it'll fix everything. But it's not like that. It can take a really long time sometimes. Yeah.
What about, I guess, coming off that, because I know this was coming from another question within our community chat, but what if someone hasn't had, given birth yet and, have symptoms already? For example, if they're doing a star jump and they feel like they need to pee all the time, is that is that a symptom of, I don't know, is that a symptom to say that their pelvic floor isn't tight enough or strong enough?
I would say it's probably too tight.
Yeah.
Leaking with exercise.
Or when you laugh too much.
We're told that that's too weak, that it needs to be strengthened. But if you, I'll just see if I'll just show you my bicep while I'm here. So if this is my pelvic floor and I'm on and it's tight, I'm holding it on a lot of the time. And then I'm jumping up and down, and I need to be able to contract this even more to hold in my wee, but it's already tired and tight. It's not going to be able to go anymore because it's already there. So I need to be able to have this, relax, let go, lengthen into the pelvic floor, so that when I do jump, I can go, it's on, and it comes on more naturally by itself. So I would say to that person that learning how to let go, learning how to relax the pelvic floor is probably going to be more helpful in the long run. You probably don't need to do any more Kegels or any pelvic floor contractions on their own. So if we're already here and we're just doing hold, lift, squeeze as hard as we can, and holding it for as long as we can, we're only going to make that muscle more tired. So if you think about it that way, can I let the muscle go so that it can actually turn on? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. How do you suggest they do that though? Because I'm envisioning, because I was doing the muscle thing, just so I got a bit of an idea
Yeah.
of where you were at. So like I'm thinking in my head, they're just constantly switched on. Like
Yeah.
all their muscles are just tight, and it's kind of like they've got to figure out how to change that. So will that be like the breath work coming in? So as soon as they're not doing it,
Yes.
relax and breathe
Yeah.
and kind of just like let go.
Yeah, so if you think of, if you were learning to meditate, you have to practice it on a regular basis to get better at it,
Yeah.
so that you can switch off. And it's the same with the breath work and the pelvic floor. It's something that you need to be able to practice on a regular basis so your body gets better at letting go. So you can kind of, even just like 5 slow, deep breaths, and you breathing down and letting the pelvic floor go, like really letting it lengthen and relax with the inhale, is going to be way better than trying to make it stronger. So, it doesn't have to be a huge thing either. Like it doesn't have to be lots and lots of work every day.
Yeah.
But yes, it's just learning. I would say for most women, it's literally just learning how to slow down and breathe slower and get that full 360 inhale. So it is going into the rib cage, it is going a little bit into the belly, and it's going into the pelvic floor to lengthen. And when I do my pelvic floor workshops, that's pretty much like the main thing we're practicing in the workshop, is how to actually get the system to come down a little bit so you can breathe down into the pelvic floor and let go. Because if you can't do that, there's no point saying, oh, you just need to relax your pelvic floor, and because it's all tied up in your like emotional state, in your level of stress, especially as mums as well. Like if you're super stressed and you've got a lot going on, your pelvic floor is probably like this. It's clenching on all day as well.
What's the importance with strength training in regards to the pelvic floor?
I would say huge, like really, really important. If you think of your pelvic floor as this bowl shape group of muscles in the base of your pelvis, and your hips and your glutes and your legs are weak, that pelvic floor is going to have to do more work. And if you can create a really supportive structure around your pelvic floor, so you've got strong glutes, strong hip rotators, your legs are really strong, your pelvic floor doesn't have to take that work and it can let go. So I would say, like, that's why I do this work. Strength training is going to change everything when it comes to the pelvic floor.
And really, this is before babies or not really, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. If women were learning this stuff before they had babies, they wouldn't have so many issues, because they would know, here are the things to look out for, here are things that might make my pelvic floor symptoms worse if they start coming up, but here are the things I can do to make them feel better straight away.
Can it indirectly cause pain somewhere else, so you think it's another issue? So let's say like you were saying, the pelvic floor then has to take on the role of all the pressure. So like, for instance, I had a really bad back when I had my first, but was it my pelvic floor that was carrying all that weight and my back was kind of let go, or like can it go indirectly somewhere else?
Yes. So I should have brought my little pelvis model up here, but I didn't. But if the pelvic floor is sitting in the base of the pelvis, connecting to the pubic bone, and then around the back to the sit bones, and then up to the tailbone and onto the back of the sacrum, or onto the sides of the sacrum down the bottom. Yes, if your pelvic floor is tight, it's going to pull on, and especially a lot of women will find they're much tighter on one side. So I'm a lot tighter on my left in the back of my pelvic floor, but then the right side at the front is tighter. And you can imagine, like, if my pelvic floor is like a spider web and I have tension in one area, it's going to pull. Or if I have scar tissue, like I had some tearing with my second birth, there's scar tissue in the back wall of my vaginal canal. It's going to pull like a spider web, and everything's going to come along for the ride. So then you can kind of think of where your SI joint is, if you've got one side of your pelvic floor pulling and it's tight, it's going to pull on that side of the SI joint too. So we have this like tension on one side, and you can just imagine how that would feel up into your low back as well.
Just crazy because
Yes.
like even like I mean like nowadays obviously it's changing for the good, which is great, and I'm not saying this from a negative perspective whatsoever, but again, like I look at my poor mum, and I won't jump on here and talk about her health without her consent, but like, you know, in their generation, strength training was just like, you'll get bulky, don't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it just like it just is so sad, because and that's why we need to, you know, I mean, kudos to you what you're doing, Zoe, because we need more experts and people out there who are helping women. We have more conversations and more knowledge, because it's great like hearing you. You're like, oh, I know that I'm tighter on this side than this side, and I'm sitting here going, I didn't even know what a Kegel was.
I don't actually know.
Do you know what I mean? Like I have no clue.
Yeah.
So I think, that awareness of your body, and I mean, obviously, like you said, it's something that you're very passionate about. But having that awareness and connection is just it's so important, hey? Like,
Yeah. And yeah, there's kind of misconception that doing any strength training is going to make you bulky and make you look like not feminine or whatever is just so untrue. Like I spend so many hours of my life trying to put on muscle and I can't. It's so hard for me to put on muscle.
yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's not going to make you bulky, I promise. And also though, if it does, then that's good.
100%.
Like you want that muscle, you want that strength, and you need it for your bones, you need it for your longevity. Like if you're going to do one thing for yourself, do strength training. Yeah.
100%. Another question that we had from the community chat was, can PCOS affect pelvic floor function?
I actually I'm not sure about that. Like I haven't really looked into that, so I don't think I can answer that question. I think maybe if there's inflammation and pain, that would make sense that there would be tension in the pelvic floor. So if you think about it that way, but I don't know enough about that, I don't think, to answer that fully.
That's fair enough. It makes sense though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think, like we've been saying before, that there's, I guess, so many areas to this, and more awareness and more knowledge is needed in ensuring that females are much more aware of their body and how they're reacting to things, and bringing it really back down to, like you said, that slowness. Because I feel like we've got so much stuff that goes on. We have so many different seasons, so much pressure and expectations that, like you said, you kind of just go, oh, it's not a priority.
Yeah.
You know? It's just crazy.
And, you know, speaking of slowing things down, sometimes women come to see me and they'll be like, you know, I don't like that, like, high intensity, like, rah-rah, you know, I don't want to train like that. And that's what I do. Like, my whole thing is, like, slowing things down and, like, feeling what is actually happening in your body, so you can notice when things are off, when they don't feel right, or when they feel really good. Yeah.
How does stress mess with the pelvic floor? I know you've kind of mentioned it briefly, but you know, obviously after birth, you know, your body goes through so much. But you mentioned also before, people who you know, are having issues prior to having babies, stress may be a factor. But how does that affect the pelvic floor in itself?
So if you just think of how you feel when you are stressed, that sympathetic response where everything is clenched, or you feel like a lot of tension through your body, that's also what's happening in your pelvic floor. But then tension in your pelvic floor can also lead to this feeling of, oh, something's not right, which could kind of create a feedback loop where you're like, there's tension in my pelvic floor, it's making me feel not right, and then I'm getting stressed, and that stress response goes in this loop. And then what happens is, if you're under a lot of stress, you've got this tension in your pelvic floor as well, what you might notice is that impacts your ability to kind of sense what's happening in your bladder, in your bowels. You might, there's almost like a disconnect that happens. So you can kind of think about that with like stress, urgency, incontinence. Like if you're leaking and you're like, oh my gosh, sorry, I said that wrong. Urgency incontinence. So it's like, I really need to go. I need to go right now and I can't hold it. And then sometimes women will wee themselves. It's like the connection to the brain that says, I need to go to the toilet is like, this has to happen right now and I cannot hold it. And it's like the stress of the situation creates this disconnection. So if you kind of think of stress that way, like having that impact on the pelvic floor, if we can bring the system back down, if we can get more back into that parasympathetic state on a more regular basis, so kind of whatever that looks like for you, whether it's meditation or finding ways to like do a body scan or just some deep breathing, doing that on a more regular basis. And, you know, I need that just as much as anyone else. Like reminding myself I need to do that. But being able to connect a little bit easier with the pelvic floor. So when we're in a high stress state, it's much harder to connect with the pelvic floor and know what's going on. So that can be a huge part of it.
Crazy. What? And on that, like you said, obviously you have to remind yourself about doing certain things because at the end of the day, life is so busy, and especially for women, they've got a million things going on at once that they struggle to find that time for themselves. What would you say one thing that women could be doing that they're not doing right now on like a daily basis? Would it be that exercise that you showed us, or
learning how to breathe better? Yeah, like that would pretty much be my go-to, or it is my go-to for pretty much everyone, is can you learn to actually 360 breathe and tune in and really feel what's happening when you are breathing, and notice the changes in your body when you're doing that. So you'll notice the heart rate comes down, the body relaxes, that feeling of like letting go. I think, you know, if I was going to say do one thing, is literally that, like learn how to breathe better. Yeah,
I love that. And that's so easy to kind of put some time aside when everyone's gone to bed. Instead of having that glass of wine first, you start to breathe a little bit better.
Yeah. And I still do it, you know, some nights I don't, but I'll try most nights, put my legs up the wall, and I'll just lay and do some deep breathing and try to bring my system down, because it's really easy, especially like this kind of season of life that I'm in. Everything is busy and a lot. If I don't bring my system back down, that's my sleep that goes out the window. That's my ability to like be patient with my kids. And it's, you know, my body is then holding more and more tension. I haven't slept. I feel like shit the next morning. I'm like, yeah, so we have this feedback loop. So when you can take that time for yourself and slow down.
When you've given women that advice to kind of like slow down, breathe, like have they come back to you with feedback, like saying, I'm so much less stressed, I've been able to give more energy to my family, I haven't had that, you know, and you probably know what it's like, you can just crack it at your kid in like an instant. Like has it changed that?
I think the biggest or the most feedback I get usually is that women feel better in their body, so they kind of feel like more at home in their body. It's easier to like come back to that, and you know, everyone has different lives and different circumstances, and so it doesn't always come back to me that I feel better and I don't like lose it at my kids as much, but it's usually I feel better in myself. This ability to kind of tune in a little bit and feel what's happening. But yeah, that stuff is hard. Yeah, I still deal with that. I'm still learning how to deal with that myself. So, yeah.
I mean, like I feel like we kind of already know the answer, but I'm intrigued to kind of see where it takes us. But do you throughout this whole time, especially, you know, diving into the pelvic floor situation or whatever you want to call it, do you think there is enough awareness in place or for females when it comes to their pelvic floor health?
I think it's getting better, but no, I don't think so. And I think, you know, in an ideal world, like school-aged girls would be learning about their pelvic floors. Because if you learn about things when you're younger, you kind of go, oh yeah, like I'm having these symptoms, because I've had like young girls come to me who have had pelvic floor symptoms, and they're like, oh well, what's going on? Like what's going on in their lives that they're experiencing leaking, or like, you know, another symptom of pelvic floor stuff can be constipation, and like what's happening in their body that's happening when they're not even in their 20s, like they're still at high school. So imagine if women were getting that education as teenagers, that when they go through pregnancy, they're like, oh yeah, I should probably kind of think about this a bit more and learn a bit more about this. So when I have my baby, here are all the things that could possibly go wrong, or that I might experience post-birth. Because I didn't even know what prolapse was before I had my kids. Like I knew,
so
like,
right.
yeah,
Just-
like I
yeah.
knew.
Why do you think
know,
that's the case? Like, why?
I think women don't want to scare each other. Because, like, I think maybe it would scare women out of having kids or like going through pregnancy if they knew these are the things that could happen. I think I would have still gone through it. I feel like it would have been really empowering for me. And it was. When I had my second baby, I had prolapse again, but I knew what to do. And it felt way less scary. It's like, oh yeah, I know what's happening.
You do make a good point, because I think a lot of women, like don't want to scare each other, but I also think we don't listen. So like, if someone was telling me that they had a prolapse, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's not going to happen to me. Like you don't actually accept that that's going to happen to you, because you don't have time to. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's where I've heard so many people tell me stories. I'm like, that's not going to happen to me. I'll just go with what's going to happen with me and go with the flow. And if it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So yeah, I just don't think we take on each other's advice or feedback or stories to actually understand it enough. So when something like that does happen, we know where to go to get the help.
Yeah.
And then we're all still in the same situation we are now, where we're trying to figure out how to actually get that help these days.
Do you think it's because it's taboo though? Because B, like I love ya, and that's why I love you. But I would say there's a lot of females out there who do listen and are more, I wouldn't say negative, but like mindset, like that. You've got a very positive mindset, right, through shit that you've gone through in your life. Whereas like I feel like other females, like, do you think it's maybe not that they're not listening, but because it's quite taboo and they feel like they can't talk about it, or like, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's definitely what happens a lot. And even now, some women who come to see me who have prolapse, they're like, I don't know how to talk about it, because you can't see it. It's not like you have a visible physical injury, but it is. It's an injury in your body that is taking up so much of your time and energy, because you're like, I don't know why this happened, or how to fix it, or how long it's going to take, because you don't know. This kind of like, this thing is happening to me, but who do I talk to? Because I don't know anyone else, or maybe you don't know anyone else who's had prolapse. So it can feel really daunting to, talk to people about it. But when you do, you kind of realize, oh, well, you've got stuff going on too. And like, maybe if we talked about it a bit more, and that's why I do share about it so much on social media and like with my clients. It's like, oh yeah, that happened to me. Yeah, I know what that feels like. That's why I do this work, because I know what it feels like, and I want to make sure that not as many women have to go through that as well.
Okay, just before we finish up, so can you fix a prolapse? Like, is it an ongoing thing that like just never goes away, or is it?
So When I had a pelvic floor physio checkup at 15 months after my second daughter, and all of the work I did in that time leading up to that appointment, when she was checking my pelvic floor, she was basically like, there's no evidence of prolapse.
Oh, wow.
So mine is like healed is the way I would use, the word I would use. I don't really have to think about it anymore. And that's my experience, though. That's not necessarily true for everyone. So it also depends on the grade of the prolapse. So mine was probably like a grade 2. Grade 1 to 2 is usually you can fix it with exercise, fix it with learning how to do this stuff. Grade 3 and above is sometimes requires surgery, but that doesn't guarantee that it's going to be fixed, because if you just go back to what you were doing before and your body is unbalanced, and say you've got hips that are one hip's really tight, one side of your body is really our bodies are asymmetrical anyway, but if one side's off or compensating in some way, that's going to pull those muscles out of position again. So we kind of think of that spider web again. If we have something pulling on one side, it's going to pull the pelvic floor along for the ride, and it might pull the bladder out of position or pull the uterus out of position. So if you think about it that way, and you go and get surgery for your prolapse, but you're not addressing what's happening in the rest of your body, then you might end up better, you may end up better off, but you might end up worse. So it's very hard to say. Each woman's experience is so different.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Zoe. This has just been phenomenal conversation. And I feel like there'd be so many females who listen to this who will just be feel the support, which we hope, and learn a little bit more.
Yeah, awesome.
For everyone who would love to, connect with you, learn more about yourself and what you're doing, where can they go and get all that information from?
The best place is probably my social media, on Instagram. So I'm Zoe at zoewood.movement. I run an online class on a Wednesday morning every week, and that's a great way to kind of come and get a feel for what I do with my strength training. It's called slow strength. It's we do things slowly, we tune in, we kind of it's all about feeling what's actually happening in your body, and a lot of those classes are pelvic floor specific. Pretty much everything I do is pelvic floor specific. And then my website, if you want to get in contact with me, that's the best way. Yeah.
Awesome.
Or Instagram. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Zoe.
Thanks, Zoe.
Howdy, it's us again. Hope you enjoyed the episode.
Don't forget to download the awareness kit and subscribe to the podcast. Have a fabulous day.